Secretary of State Rex Tillerson says if the world doesn't do something soon about North Korea, there could be catastrophic consequences. Tillerson spoke at the United Nations and called for new economic punishments against the country.
Failing to act now on the most pressing security issue in the world may bring catastrophic consequences. We have said this before and it bears repeating. The policy of strategic patience is over. Additional patience will only mean acceptance of a nuclear North Korea. The more we bide our time, the sooner we will run out of it.
Tillerson also said it's only a matter of time before North Korea takes aim at the United States. He asked the international community to take steps now to make sure that cannot happen. Of course, it comes as tensions are rising on the Korean Peninsula, and the U.S. is stepping up its military presence there. Rick Leventhal is live at the United Nations here in New York. So, Rick, what else did the Secretary say this morning?
The Secretary said business as usual is not an option, John. The Trump administration says North Korea's pursuit of nuclear weapons is one of the gravest threats facing the world today. And the Secretary said this morning, we will not negotiate our way back to the negotiating table, telling the Security Council that existing sanctions against North Korea must be vigorously enforced, and more pressure needs to be applied to Kim Jong-un, and including the possibility of military action. And to back that up, the U.S. sent a naval strike group to the Korean Peninsula, including the USS Carl Vinson aircraft carrier, expected to arrive there sometime this weekend.
All options for responding to future provocation must remain on the table. Diplomatic and financial levers of power will be backed up by a willingness to counteract North Korean aggression with military action, if necessary. We much prefer a negotiated solution to this problem, but we are committed to defending ourselves and our allies against North Korean aggression.
The Secretary said if existing sanctions had been vigorously enforced, we might not be where we are today, John.
And Secretary Tillerson singled out China, Rick?
He did. The Secretary said that China supplies 90% of North Korean trade, which helps to keep that regime afloat. And if China were willing to cut back on that number or even cut off the regime, then Kim Jong-un might be forced to comply with the international pressure. But while the Secretary sounded optimistic about China's cooperation, the Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs sounded defiant in his remarks this morning.
China strongly urges all parties to remain calm and exercise restraint. We also demand the U.S., the ROK, and other parties to refrain from conducting or even expanding military exercises and development against the DPRK.
South Korea also spoke this morning, saying their neighbor's nuclear capability brings us ever closer to a tipping point. North Korea could have asked to speak, but did not request to speak this morning, John, and still has not responded, as far as we know, to Secretary Tillerson's tough talk.
Interesting. Rick Leventhal at the UN. Thanks, Rick.